Hello, everyone. Dr. Cindy Liebert here, and welcome back to the Joy Prescription Podcast. My co-host Brooke Jack and I are on a journey with God. We are called to create this unique wellness community and support network for Christian women leaders in the fields of ministry and medicine. So if you're a woman in leadership, you are in the right place. And if you're a man looking to come alongside the women leaders in your life, in your church or business, you're also in the right place. And we're so glad that you're here. We especially want to reach out to women leaders or aspiring leaders in the fields of ministry and medicine. So that's vocational ministry, pastoral staff, missionaries, spiritual directors, lay leaders, anyone in the business world, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and also physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs, other medical professionals, mental health professionals, life coaches, and of course, aspiring leaders. We really want to come alongside you and support you. Our mission is to equip one another with the knowledge, the practical tools, and loving, grace-filled support so that we can all flourish in our lives and in our calling. So I'm delighted to introduce you today to our special guest, Andrea Stunz. I'll read her fun bio for you. It's very creative as a way of introduction. And then we'll let her share her inspiring story with you today. So Andrea Stunz is a Christ follower from the age of 7, a wife of a miraculous 34 years, a grateful mom to 3 amazing adult children, a genuinely blessed mother-in-law, and a ridiculously proud grandmother to 5 with 2 more on the way. Having lived in Brazil, Asia, and the UK, along with multiple addresses in the US, Andrea is a well-traveled Texan who finds joy in her family, grace in her friendships, confounding beauty in survival stories. She seeks purpose in every sunrise and wonder in her travels and banks on the immeasurable hope in Colossians 1:17. She is a counterphobic Enneagram 6-wing 5. We'll definitely need you to explain that. An empath and a nurturer. She serves others in mentorship and as an editor. Andrea currently lives in Kansas in an almost 100-year-old beautiful house of stories with her husband and 2 doodle dogs. Me too. I have 1, well, actually 2 doodle dogs too. So welcome, Andrea. We're so glad that you're here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm humbled and honored to partner with you in this amazing ministry. What you do pairs so well with my heart. Mm-hmm. In multiple ways, but in the way of natural medicine, natural health, the path to becoming healthy naturally, but also in ministering and encouraging leaders and others. So
thank you so much for being here. And I know you have quite a story to share, and one that I know our listeners, many of our listeners, can relate to. A big part of your past journey was trauma that you've journeyed through, and that's affected your physical health, and you've been able to heal or on a healing path
for sure,
emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically. So I'd love to share your story with others. First, just clue us in on your ministry. Who do you serve?
So I because of past trauma, I feel more safe just ministering mostly to women, but I do love mentoring engaged couples who are about to be married because of my marriage story. If I could help an engaged couple start out with a better path than we had almost 35 years ago, that would just give me so much joy. It just gives me so much joy. So to help engaged couples, I also am a mentor for married couples who either are healthy or need to be, desire to be healthier, because I think because of my marriage story, which we may get into, we may not, but I'm kind of on my third marriage to the same man. And each way, each, it just has to be different every time. Even if we stay with the same person, there are markers in that story that okay, like we have to do things differently now. So it's almost like a new marriage. And so what I can offer through mentoring is maybe a different vantage point, a different point of view for moving forward in a new way. So
I was going to say, I know that you're certified as an Enneagram coach. I'd love for you to explain.
Yeah. So Enneagram is fairly well received, but it is a controversial tool. And I do think it's just a tool. It's a lens through how we can learn and discover more about ourselves and each other. I call Enneagram the language of empathy, because as I've learned the different types and studied and grown in myself, it was a big marriage help from my husband and I to like, oh, you're not a jerk. This is just who you are. I get it. Like, I get why you've done things. And he's like, oh, I get why you do that. So it's a very empathetic way to see one another. A tool, a personality tool, but it just explained, like, when I fought Enneagram for a long time, which is very normal for a 6, where 6s are very skeptical, very like, I don't know about that. That's kind of our mentality of questioning everything. We question everything.
Is it the investigator? Is that like
no, the 6 is the loyalist.
Okay.
So we are pretty much committed, almost to a fault at times if we're not healthy. But the commitment that we bring to the table, the loyalty that we bring to the table is a gift. And it's been a gift to my marriage. My husband and I are good right now. So anything that I say that might sound negative is a past thing. So we're in a good place right now. But I told him, like, man, if I would have been an 8, we would not have survived. Like, if I would have been anything besides a 6.
That's the fear, right?
So anyway, and plus I have a family background of stubbornness. So I think I'm just stubborn enough to say, nope, I'm sticking with this. I'm going to do it. Oh, so the counterphobic part, you mentioned the counterphobic part. I'll touch on that real quick. So the counterphobic part. So in a 6, there's a counterphobic 6 and a phobic 6. So the counterphobic 6 is me. And I will push against fear. Like, nope, I'm going to do this. I'm going to buckle down, and I'm going to go against, I'm going to go against it, and I'm going to push in. I'm going to lean into the fear. Now, a phobic 6 would be more inclined to back away from the fear.
So you're brave.
Very brave. 6s have to be courageous. Let me put it that way, because we have to fight our fears 24/7.
Wow, so insightful. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
You're a mentor. You walk alongside women that have had trauma, especially around relationships. You do some premarital counseling, and you bring Enneagram, the personality tool, into your
Right. And I may not use the Enneagram word, but I can use my Enneagram knowledge and insight to understand who I'm working with better. You mentioned counseling. I'm not a counselor. So, I'm mentoring. I am very much an alongside you kind of person. I don't typically offer counsel or even advice. I'm like, I just want to walk with you. My motivation for ministry, and pretty much everything I do, is that because I've felt so alone in my past, that I just hate the thought of anyone walking this life alone. And so I'm here. Like, if I can walk with you, even in your work, which is in my editing and freelance work, to me, that's just, I want to walk alongside you. I want to support you.
That's a beautiful way to live your life. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So Andrea, you were just sharing that being the motivator, just helping support people is what gets you up every day to do what you do. But what actually got you first started working in this area of ministry, serving women the way you serve them?
Well, so I've been a part of the church forever, since I was 7. I've always loved the church. I've always loved serving in the church. My husband and I did a lot of mentoring and marriage mentoring before our marriage started falling apart. But it's just always kind of just been a part of what I've done, but more in a focused way over the last couple of years, since May of 2018, to be exact. So I became a participant in a group called Wives Care. It's through a ministry out of San Antonio called Be Broken, and they serve men, women, and families who have been broken by sexual brokenness. After my marriage imploded, after some betrayal, I found this ministry as a participant. So after that, it was just a lifeline for me. It was the right time, the right message, the right tools. It was just everything I needed. And it was for me so much, even just a few years ago, so much of healing after betrayal or after marriage trauma of any kind was couple centric. It was for the couple to heal. But this ministry was just for me. And that just felt so much like it was such a gift. So because of that and how it just brought me so much strength and healing, I, had been in, ironically, the leader of the ministry is from Brazil, and I had lived in Brazil. So we had a good connection in that way. And so we just began talking, and she's like, what can you do? Like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to serve in some way. And so I began with being the admin. We created a private Facebook group for the women to extend the journey. So after the group participation, it's just like there's nothing there. So to continue because so many good friendships and bonds are made in those groups, because you go really deep with some really messy stuff. And so we offered the Facebook group to continue on. So I admin that Facebook group. So that's part of my leadership. And then it's just kind of evolved into a few other things in that ministry. So that's part of my ministry that I do for betrayed wives. So does that answer your question?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Beautiful, Andrea. I think that it just illustrates perfectly how God tends to use our greatest pain, challenges and trials to grow us and to enable us to reach out to others and serve. And it's so
right. I went to an intensive one time early on in my healing journey, and one of the comments that was made by the leader was very impactful. I already had, at the time of disclosure, I guess I should say, I was already in the public. I had a blog, I had a public writer page, I had an Instagram, I had a public presence, and shared a lot of my story already. I'm pretty much always an open book. I always have been, because I don't want anybody to feel alone. You can see with right here, with is my favorite word. Like, I love the word with. I love it. That encompasses who I am.
Andrea, talk a little bit about how the trauma that you've dealt with, how that's affected your physical health, and how you've incorporated natural healing measures and what steps you've taken to help yourself physically and emotionally on the healing journey.
It's been such a cool journey. It's been such an insightful journey, and not an easy journey. I have always been a fairly small person. I am not small right now, but I have always been in physical form a pretty small person. But when I entered into the land of trauma, some other things came out as well, which is typical. Some repressed trauma from childhood. It's just like it just kind of opened the doors, and that's very common. Not a fun thing, but it's very common. There was a period of probably a couple of years when my body just shut down. Not shut down in like I still did things, but it just didn't process. It didn't, I was tired. I had no energy. I had, a lot of fatigue, a lot of stomach issues, the brain fog, all of the things that are standard with pain and trauma. So I gained, I ate my emotions, where some people who go through this, don't eat. I ate my emotions. So I gained a good 100+ pounds in a couple of years. The gracious part of that is I can now look back and say, thank you, Fritos and Bean Dip, for keeping me alive. I definitely drank too much alcohol, if any is even good, but I definitely drank too much then. Yeah. So there was some grace that I'm able to give myself now for, thank you, body, for taking care of me. Thank you, body, for keeping me alive. I did lose about 50 pounds. My goal was 100. I haven't gotten there yet. But I'm still working. I'm still going, and I'm still progressing.
Work in progress.
Progress over perfection, right?
That's a lot to be proud of there, Andrea, in your journey. Things that you've embraced, new routines, and that's a lot of change in a short time, but wow, that's amazing.
Right. Thank you. And I am proud of myself, but I'm also grateful that God has given me the insight and the ability. I was in a good enough place mentally to tackle the physical.
Andrea, you mentioned earlier showing grace for yourself. Can you expound on that a little bit more with us about just how grace has fit into this healing journey? I think that is something that other listeners who may be on a similar journey or dealing, with a hard path need to hear a little bit more about the grace aspect.
I grew up in a very rule-based faith background. I didn't grow up with a lot of grace or knowledge of grace. I work really hard not to do anything wrong so that I don't need grace. The problem with that is the humility of realizing that we do all need grace. And when I was confronted with the sin of other people that affected me personally, I'm like, gosh, Jesus gives them grace. I'm really no better. I didn't do those things, but I'm really no better. That same grace is mine too. How do I reconcile that? How do I receive that grace that in my pharisaical, self-righteous place that I grew up in? Anyway, it was a long journey. It was a long journey of then thinking, okay, I do need grace. I also deserve grace. And if God, I don't deserve grace, but you know what I mean? Like Jesus wants to give me grace.
That's right.
The way of deserving, not that I deserve. So that didn't come out right. But so grace was important for me to receive, but also to give myself. I have a friend who is an author, and she wrote a book called Try Softer. And it just impacted me in that I was working so hard. I was working so hard, and I was white knuckling my hurts and my pains and my traumas. And I'm like, what if I just give myself grace to let go and breathe and receive the grace that God wants to give me? Because one of the things that I learned in that journey was, I'm constantly trying to I asked my sisters one time. I have 3 sisters, so there's 4 girls in my family, no brothers.
Fun.
So yeah, it's great. I have amazing sisters. But I told them, I said, did y'all realize that I'm a people pleaser? And they were like, no, duh. I'm like, why didn't you clue me in? Like, why didn't you tell me? So I said, but in the same vein, I thought, I am working so hard to please God when God is just saying, you please me.
Right. Rest in that. Rest in my pleasure.
Yeah, I created you. I love you. You don't need to strive so hard to please me. You are pleasure to me. So anyway, there's just so much grace in that. And then I could take that and give myself the grace too of, last year, I mentioned I lost, 50 pounds. I was in Thailand for 2.5 months. I was, doing I got completely out of my routine, gained a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? There's grace. I can't always do it right. I can't always do it right. I can do my best. I can work hard and try, but I can try softer instead of just constantly trying harder. I call myself a thriver instead of a survivor because I just love the word thriving rather than just surviving. So
yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's really great just to bring up that part of being able to receive the grace of God in our journey and not put up the wall. I think it's easy to get trapped in the shoulda, coulda, woulda narrative, but we have to realize, like what you've realized, you were journeying into new territory, something that you did not expect, a path did not expect to walk down. So you're figuring it out along the way, and you're not going to know exactly everything to do just right every single moment, every single decision. Yeah. So there's got to be a rule book
for this.
Right.
There's no rule book for this journey, right?
Yes. So receiving that grace is important, to realize that, hey, you're figuring out, you're navigating this, you're walking with God. I'm sure Emmanuel is probably one of the names of God that just like grips your heart so deeply. Yeah. God with us. And so, thank you for sharing about how grace fit into your healing journey.
Well, thank you for letting me share.
I don't know if I've shared this with you, Andrea, but I through my creativity, God speaks to me, and I came up with an acrostic, JOY, for the joy prescription. In your story just reminded me of that. So the J is because I'm a striver and a fixer too. I'm always trying to troubleshoot and fix things. That's part of what makes me a good doctor. But the J, he helped me realize that the first step is surrender. Just be still, the J, just be still, breathe, sit in his presence and just be. That sounds so simple, but it was revolutionary to me. And then the O being just open to new possibilities, to his grace, to whatever he's doing currently, what he's infusing into my life. And then the Y is saying yes. Just having the courage and braveness to say yes and to take that step in faith. So thank you.
And that's honestly is why I've been drawn to what y'all do, because to what you do, because it does fit with my outlook and perspective and journey to joy. So
we're so glad that you're a part of our community. Share a little bit more about how your experience, your Christian faith, how that is woven into the work that you do to mentor women.
So I think because I came from such a rigid, rule-based, judgmental, and I'm saying that about myself. That is my faith background. I don't have any issues. I do have spiritual trauma, but I don't blame, I don't place blame on, I think the church, just like most of us, we react to culture, we react to different things. And I think the church reacted. And so I like to say that the church needs therapy too. So, So, there's grace, right? There's grace in that. Did we get hurt along the way? Absolutely. Some of us did.
But it's a messy journey, isn't it?
Messy journey. And it's a messy journey because we're all human. Anyway, are there wounds? Are there deep wounds? Yes. But at the same time, I think the pain that I've endured and the trauma that I've walked through, it just gives me such a compassion for the pain of others, because I just like, there was one situation another part of our story that I don't think I said, but as we lived in an RV for about a year or so, really nice RV. It was a nice life. We weren't roughing it. In Utah, in the mountains, it was amazing. But there was one situation where there was some domestic violence, and I just remember thinking, I want to go to her and say, I believe you. And I think that's what a lot of us need. We just need someone to say, I believe you. I believe you. I believe this hurts. I believe this sucks. I believe, that's the empathy in it. And I think because of my empathetic strength, it's not always good. It's not always valuable, but right. Sometimes our biggest strengths are our hardest weaknesses. But I don't know. I just have a lot of compassion for the pain of others. And I think I can just go alongside them in that and be a me too. Sitting on the couch in the living room, even on Zoom, I feel like that's kind of my mentality, is just kind of let me sit on the couch with you. Let's have a cup of coffee and chat.
Awesome. Well, Andrea, we want to hear what would be the top 3 tips that you would share with other women facing a hard path to healing.
Okay, so this is a good one, and one that I love a whole lot, because God gave me these 3 benchmarks when I first started sharing about my betrayal journey, and they've lasted. So in a nutshell, it's be kind, be healthy, and glorify God. And those were the things that, as I walked through my journey of communicating with others, of sharing with others, but also with myself, be kind, be healthy, glorify God. And those were just 3 amazing benchmarks. Kind to myself, also be kind to others. I need to share things that aren't unkind. I am not an unkind person. I did unkind things in the heat of my anger and hurt. I did, which is normal, but still not who I am. That's not my value system. So, and then the be healthy, I think of that as an integrated health, as we kind of talked about before, mind, body, and spirit, is what I'm sharing, is what I'm communicating, is what I'm bringing in my healing journey, is that healthy in all the ways. And then, and one of the things that I wanted to bring out that has been a pivotal part of me in my eating journey, but one of the things I ask myself is, does it have value? So an extension on the being healthy is, does this have value? Is it valuable to me? Is it valuable to others? And then the last one is glorify God, because this is his story. When I ultimately came to the huge revelation of, wait a minute, this is not just about me. I am in the gospel story. How can I, in my healing, in my sharing with me and with others, does this glorify God in God's story, in the story that he's writing? How can I be a part of that bigger piece rather than it being just mine? So.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned when we had spoken before about a prayer that you often pray in relation to glorifying God, which was, Lord, help me to be willing to fill in the blank. Is that still something that you...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was from one of my therapists, a trauma therapist early on. I've been in trauma healing from betrayal trauma for about 10 years now. So but intensely for about 5. So, but early on in the 5-year section, she was not a believer, but she told me about how she stopped smoking, and she would say, Lord, help me be willing to not smoke this next cigarette, or to smoke 2 instead of a pack, or whatever. And so I just kind of took that and I thought, okay, I like that. Like, it goes further than just saying, Lord, help me to be willing. Help me to be willing to, make that appointment, or to eat healthy foods today, or,
admit that I need help in an area.
Yeah.
That's so good. That is really good, because it's amazing what God will do when we just give him our yes.
Right.
And just say, I'm willing to go, send me, or, whatever it may be, whatever circumstance or situation, but just that willingness and open heart of surrender.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Andrea, for being vulnerable and brave, just put your story out there for other women. I know many of us can identify with some aspect of your story, whether it's
absolutely
unhealthy behavior, struggling with addictions to food or alcohol, or any kind of trauma or betrayal. You've gone through a lot of pain and suffering, but have come out on the other side, and able to share some pearls of wisdom with us, and some tips and encouragement. I think your story is very powerful, and it's beautiful to see how God is redeeming all the pain and suffering, and helping you to transform. So love if you want to,
right? That's what it's about. Trauma or no trauma, we're all about, this life is just sanctification, transformation to redemption, and we're going to get there.
Yes.
Just keep trying softer, right?
Great title of your friend's book. So Andrea, share with our listeners how they can connect with you for mentoring or editing, all the wonderful things that you do.
Yeah. So my website is just simply andreastunz.com, AndreaStunz.com. A lot of people like to put a T before the Z, but there's not one. So andreastunz.com. And then you can find me on it with Andrea Stunz on, I share a lot of things on Instagram, my business stuff, but I like to get personal too, because that's just who I am. So I love to travel. So I share some of my travel things and travel adventures, going to Italy in April. So you'll be seeing about my Italy trip.
Lovely.
If you need want someone to walk or work alongside you, I'm here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrea. And
thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yes.
So, for our listeners, anyone that needs additional support or encouragement around the intersection of being a woman, a leader, having our Christian faith, and being in some sort of ministry, whether that's in medicine or in formal ministry or informal ministry, we just encourage you to reach out and connect with us at thejoyprescription.com, and consider joining our vibrant community for wellness and connection and support. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.